Okay, so this is Mike Robinson. And you're currently filling in as a guitar player for Riders.
Yeah, I just started guitar, banjo, and pedal steel with those guys.
Cool.
I've only done 3 shows so far.
And you also play with, like, I've seen you play with Jacob Jolliff and Sam Ryder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of sub in those 2 bands for sure.
Yeah, and I've also seen you play, like, pedal steel just at other places. Yeah. So how did you get introduced to bluegrass?
My dad's a fiddle player, so he started dragging me along to the bluegrass festivals. I think my first one, I was an infant, but the first one I remember, I was 8.
I was an infant at my first one too. So when did you start playing?
For a while, my folks lived on a boat.
Mm-hmm.
And they got my older brother a guitar when he turned 8. I was 6. My brother never touched the guitar, and I totally stole it from him. So I would always steal his guitar and kind of mess around with it as a 6-year-old, and that's kind of where I got my start. And my dad kind of gave me some lessons. He was a decent guitar player as well.
Did you start off with, like, folk music or something else?
I feel like when you're 6, you're just kind of playing the instrument.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really any style yet. You're just, grabbing the first few chords you're into. But since my dad played fiddle, like, that kind of stuff was always kind of around and in my ears. And then when I turned 10 and 11, I got really into Stevie Ray Vaughan and, Jimmy Page, and wanted to play electric guitar and wanted to play really loud. And that's kind of what I did until summertime. And then I would go to the festivals, and all my kid friends were there, and they were playing music, and every year I would just get, like, revitalized with, like, Bluegrass Mind once a summer.
Yeah.
And then it would kind of peter off, and I'd want to play, like rock and roll and stuff. And later in life, that kind of turned into jazz. I was playing jazz in high school, and I went to college for that. But I kept kind of gravitating back towards bluegrass, even when I was trying not to play it.
Nice. So you didn't grow up in New York City?
No, I moved here for college when I was 18.
Why did you stay here for bluegrass? Like, why did you stay here?
That's a great question, because when I moved here, I had 100% intentions to leave right away.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, the day I get my degree, I'm going back to Colorado. I grew up in Colorado. And literally the day I got my degree, I found this terrible half of a living room of an apartment. It was like somebody's living room, and I hung an IKEA curtain down the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that half was my bedroom, and people would be, like, coming and going. I didn't even have a wall, but it was like $400 a month. I was like, okay, I can find $400 bar gigs every month and then figure the rest out. And that kind of, like, started working, and the gigging was happening more and more, and I started going on tour a little more, and eventually got a better apartment and kept going on tour, and the tours were a little better, and then I got an even better apartment, and my roommates were all bluegrass musicians, and so I'm still planning on leaving New York. It's just taking me a really long time, because New York keeps, like, working for me, and there's such an amazing scene here.
Yeah.
It's hard to leave.
How long have you been living here? Like,
I think 7.5 years or so. Because I moved here in August, so it was 7 years in August.
So have you been, like, playing bluegrass here the entire time you lived here?
No, not at all. The first 2-ish years, and I'm sure you can understand this, I couldn't get into a lot of the places.
Yes.
So
Story of
I
your
just
life.
stayed in college, and everybody in my college was working on jazz, so I worked on jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And when I turned 21, it was, like, literally a change, like, that day my whole career changed.
Yeah.
I went to Mona's on my birthday and went to the pick, and everybody's like, "You've been here for 2 years or 3 years and no one's heard of you?" And I got 3 like bluegrassy bar gigs that night. I got put in my calendar. I was like, okay, wow, there's gigs here. Whereas in the jazz world, the economy is, not to get too businessy, the economy is messed up.
Mm-hmm.
People are fighting, like being rude to each other, not physically fighting, but like undercutting each other on these like $30 gigs a lot of the time. Whereas like a lot of the bluegrass stuff in New York can pay your rent. So that kind of was the transformation. But yeah, when I first moved here, mostly just jazz focus, and that's like what my teachers and I were working on and stuff.
So you've been playing bluegrass for like 5.5 years in New York or something?
Yeah.
How have you seen the scene evolve in that time?
It's funny, I see it as kind of like a stop off on this journey from Berkeley to Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Which it's kind of rude, but there's so many exceptions to that. But I know so many people who are living in Boston who ended up living here for a couple of years and then moved to Nashville. Mm-hmm. Both my roommates are not going to do that. I can confidently say neither of those guys want to move to Nashville. They're very into New York. But yeah, there was this moment where all the Punch Brothers were here, and Jordan Tice was here, and Billy Failing was here, like all these people that ended up moving to Nashville and, you know, finding success there. But that was a really exciting time. And now I feel like a lot of people have left, and it's a little, I don't want to say stunted, but I find the scene right now is like really country.
Yeah.
There's a lot of country music going on. A lot of the old gigs are still there, but they're country gigs now, like Skinny Dennis, Lucky Dog.
All the places I can't go.
All the places you can't go, exactly. All the places I started working the day I turned 21. And I think that is attracting more people from Boston. There's a new wave on the way down.
Yeah.
And hopefully they stay, but you know, like there's always young people coming in because of the nature of New York. I think it's like a really fun place to be a young person.
Okay, so do you have any like influences in this kind of music?
I kind of categorize my influences into like lifestyle versus playing. And then there's some people who are really great at both. Like my playing influences are obviously like the bluegrass guitar greats, Norman Blake, Doc Watson, Tony Rice for sure. But when I was 15, I met Chris Eldridge. Mm-hmm. And not only was he like one of the best players I had ever heard, he was just like a super nice guy.
Yeah.
And really supportive, and Grant Gordy same way, Ross Martin same way. I was living in Colorado, so Grant and Ross were kind of the local legends, and I went to all their shows, and Critter ended up being at Rocky Grass the same summer after I met him, and so I was in his like classes at Rocky Grass Academy, and I ended up studying with him all the way through college.
Oh,
and
cool.
It was just like such a mentor to me. I don't know if he knows it or not, but like that, the attention was way more inspiring than like, you know, every Clarence White recording I could get my hands on, because I didn't know Clarence White.
Yeah.
Couldn't have, weren't alive at the same time, but like that, I think those influences were way more profound. Like the people who went out of their way to be really nice and really supportive. Julian Lodge, another great example, which was my teacher, but was super personal about it. Mm-hmm. Which is, I think, a little more impactful for me.
Yeah, I've never seen him, but I would like to.
It's pretty incredible.
I met Critter when I was about 3, I think.
Oh, wow.
But I wasn't paying attention or anything. He used to live down the block.
I remember. I used to take lessons over there.
Yeah. I wasn't paying attention or anything.
Yeah.
Otherwise. And
3-year-old.
Yeah. But
I don't think you pay attention to much. at
probably
3.
not. Maybe I was 5.
Blissful.
I was pretty young when he was living here. Okay, so do you have any standout experiences playing?
In New York or just in general?
Both.
I feel like it's just been constantly getting better.
Mhm.
I guess that's just the part of my life I'm in, but every year I kind of have a new experience that's like, wow, that just happened. Last summer, probably the coolest thing was I used to play in the Jeff Austin Band. I
Yeah.
no longer play in the Jeff Austin Band, but at the time, he's good friends with Sam Bush, and so we did a set at this like town square sort of festival, full set with Sam Bush, 2
Mhm.
mandolins, and
That sounds
Sam
really cool.
sang Same Old River, and I could sing baritone on Same
Oh,
Old
cool.
River with Sam. It was like I was definitely the dork inside me was screaming.
Yeah.
Very cool. Also getting to play in the Jolliff Band, like I know it's my roommate and my roommates and
Yeah.
my close friends, but like that music is it's like some of the hardest music I ever played, and to push myself like that was really inspiring, and I think that's the only way to really get better is just get your ass kicked, excuse me.
Yeah. So you just made a new like EP, right?
I did.
Yeah. What was it based off of anything?
Yeah, it's definitely a departure from the bluegrass thing. It was kind of like I was getting really into certain songwriters and traveling a lot. So pretty much in my free time, on days off, in hotels, it was just a thing to be doing, to be writing songs, and a lot of them are kind of like more personal, like feelingsy type songs,
Mhm.
and it's like I'm just inspired by people who do that. So I wanted to make it a part of my practice,
Mhm.
is to be writing songs with words in them, sections, more kind of the whole compositional element instead of just tunes.
Yeah.
Working on my singing as well.
I like it. I listened to it and it kind of just seems like it's like one long song.
Huh.
I liked it.
That's high praise.
I liked
I was trying to make something that worked together, but it's never in your mind when you're writing song by song. So thank you.
it. Yeah. It was really nice. Okay. So you also just started playing some with Railroader.
Yeah, I've only done 3 shows.
That's like not straight ahead bluegrass, but how did you like get into like a jam band scene kind of thing?
Well, yeah, so I worked with Jeff for 2 years, and
Mhm.
Jeff used to play in Yonder.
Yeah.
And Yonder was kind of like, I shouldn't say is kind of like the bluegrass band, but connected to jam bands.
Mhm.
But they're very bluegrassy. And I think Railroad was kind of like the jam band connected to bluegrass,
Yeah.
They have drums and they have, keyboards, and it's like kind of more out of that like more rock and roll world.
Yeah.
But it has, fiddle, mandolin, banjo, and so we did, Jeff's band opened for them for 3 shows last year, and so I got to meet all the guys, and they're all really cool people, and tragically their banjo player, who also played, I'm gonna miss some, but saxophone, flute, acoustic guitar, mandolin, lap steel, and dobro in the band. Like, what a giant.
Mm.
he had cancer and passed away a few months ago. Probably like 6 months ago at this point. And they did a bunch of shows with like featured guests like Andy Falco from the String Dusters, Tony Trischka, Charlie Rose, all these kind of like, famous people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they were kind of just figuring out what the next step was, and Jolliff connected me with Tim Carbone, their fiddle player, because they play in a band together.
Yeah.
Metropolitan Jamgrass Alliance.
I've heard of it.
And so Carbone wrote me and said, hey, would you be interested? And I learned a couple songs, and we played together. We played a couple tunes together, and then for the shows, I had to learn like 50 songs, and that was kind of my new challenge.
So I guess you're kind of a part of this, but there are a lot of people who are much younger than, I guess, the supposed average bluegrass musician. So why do you think there are so many like younger people playing?
I think that bluegrass recently had this sort of revitalization where it was, there were a few things that kind of brought it to people's attention recently that were kind of like geared towards young people.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who, may not admit this, that were drawn to bluegrass through bands like Mumford and Sons, or bands like Avett Brothers or Avett Brothers, I can't remember. Or kind of the jammier ones like Yonder or Green Sky. I know a lot of people who were into those bands that then, because of them, went and heard, Flatt and Scruggs at Carnegie Hall, or Smithsonian Bill Monroe record, or his Bill Monroe collection, or Manzanita, any of the like more classic records, and we're like, oh wow, that's the real thing, and it was like a rabbit hole, and now they're just into bluegrass. Same thing probably happened with like seeing Oh Brother Where Art Thou for a lot of people, but I guess I'm not old enough to speak to what it was like in the 80s and 90s and how popular it was. I know it was huge in the 60s and 70s because that's when all the festivals kind of started popping up.
Yeah.
That's when, Osborne Brothers were touring, Monroe was touring, Jimmy Martin, all of them. And like when the kind of second generation, Tony Rice, Ricky Skaggs, Keith Whitley, all those guys were kind of getting their starts, that I feel like is kind of the new, there's like a new guard after those guys, like Bela Fleck has kind of brought in kind of some younger people to the scene. And then I feel like those are the people I was inspired to do this stuff by, like the really great, people who are like 30 now, or like late 20s, Hargraves, Dominic, Leslie, Jolliff. I was just like, wow, those people are kind of pushing this even further now.
Yeah.
Which is very cool.
Definitely.
Stash, Cheese.
He's really, really
like, good. No one is doing that much innovation on the guitar right now, I don't think. Or you could point him to me.
Okay. This next question is, I'm sorry. If you could describe this kind of music in a word or a phrase, what would it be?
A word or a phrase?
Yeah.
If I had to think of a word, I would probably say like raw. Yeah, I'll go with that.
That's good.
My backing up of this is, I was a young person learning this music, so I got really into like like new hip thing.
Mm-hmm.
At one point that was Nickel Creek, and at another point it was Punch Brothers, and those guys are so good
Mm-hmm.
that the music came out really clean. And I'm still obviously like blown away by the like modern, very clean, very technical shit. It's just, sorry,
That's okay.
technical stuff. You can edit that. It's just the bluegrass thing I learned. Actually, I learned this from Critter.
Mm-hmm.
It was like listening how the on the old Flat and Scruggs stuff, the tempos are changing.
Yeah.
The solos are at different tempos than the chorus,
Mm-hmm.
and the groove is deep because people aren't metronomically perfect.
Yeah.
It's very raw music. There's no computers. There's no click track.
Yeah.
It's also music you can go play in a field. And it's going to
Exactly.
sound just as good.
Yeah. What would you say draws you to bluegrass or folk music?
Recently, honestly, just because I've been working in the city playing kind of most types of music.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's not true, but like many types of music, not most.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I kept hanging in the bluegrass scene is people are just super nice to each other.
Yeah.
And that's like that's very important to me. I think that the bluegrass community, at least the one here, is so welcoming that that's really why.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way people are connecting. Musically, I'll always love pretty much every kind of music.
Yeah.
Like, there's good and bad types of every kind of music. It's, for me, more about how people are interacting in those communities. And
Mm-hmm.
the bluegrass scene has been, at least to me, extremely inviting.
Yeah. Was there an initial draw?
Yeah, totally. It was the first time I ever went to Rocky Grass. I was hanging, and a bunch of people my age were playing tunes.
Mm-hmm.
And I played the guitar, but I didn't know the tunes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I'm never messing this up again.
Yeah.
Next time I come here, I'll know these tunes. And it was it was a social thing. It was, I want to be socially a part of that. Even though I already knew some things about playing guitar and I knew some things about the music, it was like, oh, I want to be doing this here with them.
Mm-hmm. Was there like a point in time where you realized that like music is absolutely what you wanted to do?
Yeah. I was sitting with my guidance counselor in high school,
Okay.
and I was about to, we were looking at colleges. I wasn't even a senior, I was a junior. And I was about to sign up for my senior year classes. And I realized that all the music schools I was into didn't require a fourth year of math or science. And right then I was like, I'm gonna go to music school. And I was like, well, if I'm gonna do this, I don't have to do math.
Would you say that playing jazz younger influenced you in bluegrass?
Oh, totally. Especially because of the types of gigs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I played in a band called Tarka for a while, and that had like some time signatures and changes that were a little more challenging. And playing with Sam Ryder, playing with Jolliff, there's like some stuff that it's like not fiddle tunes, it's not bluegrass.
Yeah.
And although those bands are seriously bluegrass influenced, having a foot in sort of both of those scenes has been super helpful just for the types of gigs I can get. Probably just because I'm obsessed with Ross Martin, I've been able to follow Ross into a couple of jobs. Ross played in Tarka and
Yeah.
Ross played in the Jeff Austin Band.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, like having studied just even a little of the improvised part of the jazz stuff helped some of the like more progressive bluegrass stuff for sure.
Cool. Well, thank you for talking to me today.
Yeah. Good There's a G1.